Drive, Dr. Nasrallah's willingness to give back, Alabis' his bravery for representing our community in a time where many are against us, Sister Dunya's drive to succeed, and Haj Musa Hamka's commitment to the youth. I want to thank them for again proving their commitment to the community by showing up tonight and inshallah inspire and guide our youth to excel beyond all bounds. Let's give them 3 loud salawat. Now, I briefly mentioned our speakers, but I think it's important to discuss each individual speaker in a bit more detail for those who may not be aware of their stories. So we'll start with Sister Dunya. Let us begin with Sister Dunya Bazi. She is the founding partner and CEO of AtLaw, one of Michigan's fastest growing law firms. She began her career in personal injury law and has since expanded her practice into civil litigation, business, tax, real estate, and immigration law. Recognized among the top 10 under 40 personal injury attorneys, Dunya is not only a strong advocate for her clients, but also a leader in innovating how law firms operate. She continues to inspire young professionals through her vision, resilience, and commitment to justice. Let us welcome her with a loud salawat. Next, we have our dear brother, Sam Abbas. He is the CEO of Brown Modern Eatery, and a restaurant brand that combines fresh, sustainable food with modern design and community spirit, aka my favorite restaurant. Born and raised in Dearborn, Sam's entrepreneurial journey reflects his deep commitment to the city. Since opening the first Brome in 2015, he has expanded into new concepts and projects, including Yogurtopia, The Great Commoner, and others. Through his work, Sam aims to showcase Dearborn as a hub of innovation, culture, and hospitality. Again, let's welcome him with a loud salawat. We also have a longtime MYC supporter, Dr. Ali Nasrallah. Dr. Nasrallah is a board-certified family medicine physician at the Family Doc Clinic in Dearborn Heights. After earning his medical degree from the University of Michigan Medical School and completing his residency at Corewell Health Wayne Hospital, Dr. Nasrallah chose to practice in his own community. He cares for patients of all ages, from children to seniors, offering both primary and urgent care. Dr. Nasrallah believes in building healthier families and stronger communities. He also started the Muharram Initiative, if you haven't heard, which is a way to provide health care for those in need around the community in honor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Imam Hussein alayhi salam. His initiative inspired many other clinicians and clinics and physicians to follow in his footsteps and contribute to this beautiful cause. Let's give Dr. Nasrallah a very loud salawat. Next is a dear brother of mine and a voice of the people, State Rep Alabis Farhat. Mr. Farhat serves as a Michigan State Representative for the 3rd District, representing Dearborn and parts of Detroit. A proud son of immigrants, Alabis earned a degree in public health from the University of Michigan Dearborn and is pursuing a Master of Public Policy from U of M Ann Arbor, but go green always. His journey in public service began early, working on campaigns and in local government, before running for office himself. Today, he champions policies that strengthen working families, expand opportunity, and uplift his community. I want to thank you for your commitment to serving our community on the state level. Please join me in welcoming him with a loud salawat. Last but not least, we have Assistant Superintendent Haj Musa Hamka. With more than 2 decades of service in public education, Haj Musa has dedicated his career to advancing student achievement and supporting educators across metropolitan Detroit. He began his career as a mathematics teacher in West Bloomfield schools before transitioning into educational leadership. For over 10 years, Mr. Hamka served as a principal of Grosse Pointe South High School, where he guided the school to numerous distinctions, including recognition as the 4th-ranked traditional high school in Michigan and one of the nation's top secondary schools. A hallmark of his tenure was a deep commitment to character education, helping students with reflection, act with compassion, and perform with honor. Under his leadership, South embraced the belief that it is not sufficient for students to aspire to be the best in the world. Rather, they must strive to be the best in the world. He now serves as the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources for Grosse Pointe Public Schools, where he provides strategic leadership in recruiting, developing, and supporting exceptional staff. In addition, he is an adjunct professor of mathematics at Henry Ford College, where he continues to share his passion for teaching and learning. Mr. Hamka is deeply committed to cultivating inclusive cultures and school environments that promote excellence, foster belonging, and empower students to realize their full potential. Let's give Hajj Musa Hamka a very loud salawat. Before we delve into the questions, I want to briefly explain how tonight's program will work. We have a couple general questions that will apply to all panelists, in which they will be answering based on their own experiences. However, we want the audience to be involved, so we will then follow up by asking each panelist their own individual questions based on the questions that you submit when you scan the QR code on the screen. So let's keep that up there for a minute. Please pull out your phones if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, and then submit those questions, and inshallah we'll get to them as time permits. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Panelists, are you all ready, inshallah? Okay. So we'll begin with our first general question. Can you share a little bit about your journey, what led you into your career, and some of the experiences that shaped you along the way? Let's start with Sister Dunya and we'll work our way down, inshallah.
It all started when I was 6 years old. When I used to, defend all of my siblings to my parents, and they called me the Muhammad in the family from a very, very young age, and it stuck. That's what it was for me. There was kind of no options. That was a straight line path for me. So my journey through school was just that. Then when I finished law school, I was planning on doing like business transactions or corporate law, and my brother got into a very serious accident. He broke his hip and his ankle on opposite sides. He couldn't walk for like 6 months. And we were in the hospital laying there. My dad was overseas visiting his family for the first time. So I had to make the phone call to him at 4 in the morning because it was like all over the news and I didn't want him to hear it from somebody else. And they didn't operate on my brother for 4 days until they knew the insurance company was gonna pay. And the second they knew the insurance company was going to pay, they put us up in a villa suite in the hospital. You could maybe fit 100 people in the room. And I knew right then that both of these things weren't right. Like, it wasn't right to treat us like this if the insurance company isn't paying, and it isn't right to treat us like royalty if the insurance company is. And I took that as a sign. It was the pinnacle moment of where I was picking my career path. I was looking for jobs. I had just passed the bar exam. I took that as a sign from Allah to show me that, like, I need to help and serve these individuals who really don't have a voice in the hospital. They don't have anybody who's fighting for them. And how scary of a moment. I was technically a lawyer at the time, and it was very scary for me. So ever since then, I've loved every second of it. I love the courtroom. I love beating up insurance companies. I love advocating for the little guy. And alhamdulillah, that's what brought me to where I am today. And now I'm looking to inspire other attorneys to find their passion, who are they meant to serve in our career, and be the best possible attorneys they can be, and try to make them better so they can serve the clients in a better way.
Thank you. And for those of you who don't know, Sister Dunya, I believe, has, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 50 employees at your firm? About. So if there's anybody who could guide us, inshallah, it'll be her. So thank you again for your answer. Hajj, tafadhal.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I think for me, one of the things I did that was a strength, and it worked for me, is I followed something I was really good at. I know sometimes people say follow your passions. I was really good at mathematics, and I also happen to have a passion for it. And I remember when I was in college specifically, there was a professor. Her name was Dr. Neer. I had her for Calc 1. She was the most amazing teacher I ever had. I actually went through high school. I did not take mathematics my senior year. Didn't want anything to do with it. And it was because I had a really bad experience with a teacher. But when I got to college and I started retaking some of my mathematics courses, her passion just inspired me. I loved her so much. I mean, not in past. I loved her class so much that I took her for Calc 2 and I took her for Calc 3. And at that point, I said, I'm going to go in a mathematical related field. I tend to be a little more outgoing, though. So working in a cubicle as maybe an engineer didn't align with my personality. So I guess you have to also know yourself. So my strength was mathematics. I'm a little more outgoing. Figured I'm also talkative. So teaching was a way to go. But I also, there's a big belief, especially for our community. I believe that the greatest institution that we have in America is public education. I don't know another country where immigrants can come and then their kids become doctors, entrepreneurs, lawyers, educators, right? And so I think as a young kid, my dad always tell me, they can never take your education away from you. And when you live in a community like ours, you see you can open up a business, but the true pathway to success is education. And it's also for diversification, right? We can't have everyone own a gas station. We also can't have everyone be a doctor. We have to get in a myriad of fields to grow our influence so that way we could advocate for ourselves, so we could lead ourselves. But I guess that's kind of how I got into education, just it's a passion, something I love.
Thank you, Hajj. Just to speak on his commitment to teaching, is Batul here at all? Is your daughter here? Batul, if you're there. Batul got a 4.6 GPA. So let's just say teaching in that family is superb. Bismillah. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
That is impressive, that 4.6 GPA. My name is Alabas Farhat. I have the honor of serving as the state representative for the city of Dearborn and parts of Detroit. My story, I'll say, isn't rooted in maybe academic success. I actually wasn't that good at calc when I took it in high school. I actually intentionally avoided it when I got to college. That's why I have a degree in public health. But early on at early age in high school, I was very involved in groups like MYC, the Arab Student Union, and I really fell in love with the idea of serving my community. This idea that, like you said, only in America does this country and the city and the state give you the tools to build the kind of community you want to live in. And for me, at the time, there was a state representative in Dearborn. His name was Abdullah Hamoud, and he had came to Fordson during career day, and him and I on some disagreements, and he said, you know what, you're a smart guy. I want you to come intern for me. And I said, okay, great, but you got to pick me up. I'm 16. I don't have a car. And he did. He picked me up, and we actually went to Lansing a few days. And I really fell in love just seeing the way you can influence change in the state, how you can work in different rooms and meet different people. But I also realized something, that when Abdullah was meeting many people, and even now to this day when I do it, I would be the first Arab American they would meet most times. And that's something that's strange, right? Living in Wayne County, living in Metro Detroit, it's kind of hard. But when you're living in Muskegon Heights or Ludington, they don't have the food or the culture, or they've never met Arab Americans. And so for me, it was a new experience of kind of educating people, teaching them about Arab culture, being a Muslim, and what that means, and really battling the stigma. And now more than ever, there is more stigma around being an Arab and being a Muslim. There's a lot of ways we can approach it, but I think one thing we still see the mayor leading on is pushing for understanding across culture, across, religious differences. But for me, it started there. I started at a young age in high school, volunteering on campaigns, getting involved, and, the heritage of being the son of immigrants is something I carry with me. How do we make it easier for people in my age group to continue calling Michigan home, calling Dearborn home? How do we make it easier for people that are coming here to find their American dream? There was a time, my parents and many of our parents could have came to this country, got started working a part-time job or a full-time job somewhere, start their own business, but that dream seems like it's further away every day. And for me, I keep fighting to make sure the next kids, the next generation of people can have those opportunities I had. Being 7 years outside of high school, I'll tell you, I still go back to Fordson a lot of times. Love Fordson. By the way, I think they're playing Dearborn High tonight, so good luck to them. But, every time I go into the high school and I see the small things I used to have that I took for granted go away slowly. And how do we bring those back? How do we make sure this next generation's up for success and that we are doing everything we absolutely can for people in this state and in Dearborn? And so that's my why. That's kind of what drives me every day, is just this idea that here in this country, we can build the society we ought to live in. We can bring our values to the front, and that's something I take very seriously, and something drives me every single day.
Thank you. And just a quick note, Alabis was actually nominated Michigan's independent MERS, right? Is it Michigan? Yeah, MERS. So he really is committed to the community, and we thank you. Brother Sam, fadal.
Thank you. So, kind of hearing Hajj Musa it brought back a lot of memories because I was really good at math, and I was on a pathway to be an engineer. I finished Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, differential equations, et cetera, et cetera. I looked around and I realized I'm a lot more social of a person, and I don't think that I could sit in a cubicle. And I loved business, but every time I'd ask my parents, I said, you know, I want to go into business, first thing my mom would do was shut it down instantly. Don't even think about it. You're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And she's sitting there in the audience right now looking at me, but it's the truth. And so I kept on, and I decided, okay, if I can't do that, then I'll push on to economics, maybe accounting, figure something out there. In the end, I found myself back with that entrepreneurial spirit, opening businesses one after the other and continuing to push on. And opening businesses is not as easy or as glorified as it may seem. There are a lot of ups and downs, and that's part of the grit that you have to have in order to continue on with it. The one thing that I would say to the youth is, although it's nice to say you own a business or to go into business or to aspire to be a business owner, entrepreneur, the best thing that you can do is root yourself in education, the way that Haj Musa was mentioning before. With education, it's like your insurance policy. And you give yourself that foundation where you can always fall back. And that was those words resonate in my head since I was a child, you know, with my mom and my dad always telling me, if you want to go into business, that's fine, but give yourself an insurance policy just in case it didn't work out. And when my first business failed, my parents said, well, you still have your education. And I said, no, I'm going to keep pushing on. And I continued, and I pushed. And after I graduated, I got my MBA. That still didn't make my parents happy. So I pushed on, and I got my CPA. And finally, they said, okay, that's good. We'd love for you to push on to get a PhD. I said, this is where I kind of say, no, this is it. You know, this is where I stop. And I continue to diversify and go into various businesses and real estate and things like that. And it's something that I truly love. And I feel like a lot of times people, you know, they think they're attorneys, but, you know, if I had to pick what Dunya is, she embodies the entrepreneurial spirit. Although she's an attorney, she really is an entrepreneur. Although I'm a CPA, I truly believe that everything about me is an entrepreneur, because every time I hit a roadblock, I pivot and I continue to move on, and I try to find ways to evolve as a business owner, to continue to stay relevant, to continue to stay competitive in the marketplace. So, alhamdulillah for everything that I've encountered, and I absolutely have no regrets. Although I took the long route, I feel like in the end it was quite worth it, and my why ended up coming to fruition. So alhamdulillah for everything.
Alhamdulillah. And if we went to the CPA, we would not be getting our farmer's market salad with chicken on top. But so thank God it worked out the way it did. Dr. Nasrallah, tafadal.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Alaikum salam.
So, funny story is I took calc with Haj Musa when I was in high school as dual enrollment. It was a hard class. And although I loved math, I wasn't that good at it. But he was an excellent teacher and an excellent role model for a lot of us youth. And thank you, Haj, for everything you did, and thank you, everybody here. Growing up, I loved science. Right? I was a nerd. I'm still a big nerd. And I've always loved people. I've always loved meeting people and talking to people and learning from others. And like everybody here, I had important people in my life. And I was actually blessed to have a lot of those people who guided me. And, you know, like a lot of you too, my parents didn't go to college, you know. Some of them, you know, my dad didn't go to high school, but they worked hard, and they were honest, and they taught me the importance of remembering Allah in everything I do, as well as, you know, education. Like, my dad would take me to the smoke shop, and he would tell me, you want to clean the bathroom or you want to go to college? And he'd make me clean the bathroom, make me wipe down the shelves. So I learned the business, you know, business through that. working hard and being honest. And like I said, I was a nerd, did nerdy things. I still remember when my mom brought me a microscope home, and I went through college. I had, Allah yarhamah, Sayyid Imad Fadlallah as a role model at Fordson, who pushed me to dream big and to go big. I remember I got into Ann Arbor in undergrad, and it was a big, now it's normal. Everybody's going to these big colleges, but I had got into Ann Arbor, and I wasn't going to go. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anyone. I was afraid of the financial burden and leaving my parents to go to Michigan. And I had a scholarship to Wayne State, and I still remember. He called me into his office, and he's like, "You think I don't know?" He's like, "You have no choice." He called my parents and shipped me to Ann Arbor. And I just kept working hard. And when you want to become a doctor, you have to sacrifice a lot. People don't always see it, but like any profession, if you want to be really good at it, you sacrifice. You miss birthday parties, you miss holidays, you miss family time, you lose a lot of friends. But at the end of the day, you just work hard. And alhamdulillah, I worked really hard. I got into a very good medical school. But for me, I always knew that I wanted to come back to my community. And I always, when I went through med school, I realized, I kept trying to convince myself to become a surgeon, to become a cardiologist. And I kept coming back to the fact that I liked science and I loved medicine, but I also liked community, and I also loved meeting people and helping communities and getting to know other people. And I felt like family medicine was the best route for me at that point. And family medicine, if you don't know, is a type of doctor, a family doctor that treats people of all ages. You're embedded in your community. You can practice any way you want. You practice based on the way you're trained, right? So you do primary care, but if you pick up extra skills, you can do more stuff. So knowing that, I came back. I did residency in Metro Detroit at a small community hospital. Everyone was like, "What are you doing? You went to Ann Arbor. You're coming to this small hospital. Where's this hospital even at?" But I knew that was going to set me up. So the lesson for the younger generation is, you know what you're passionate about, do that, but also you kind of sometimes have to silence the noise in the room and do things for the right reason. So not always chasing that big name, but doing what you think is best for you. So I came back to this community hospital because I knew it was going to set me up for the long dream that I had, which was to go into private practice, to open my own clinic. So I worked really hard in residency. I started preparing. And then straight out of residency, I did what most people don't do, is I opened up my own clinic. And the reason I wanted to do that was because I wanted the freedom. I wanted the freedom to say, when a patient comes in and they can't afford their medicine or their visit, it's okay. We'll take the payment from Allah. And I tell my patients this a lot of times. They come in, it's okay, bhasab ma Allah. And they laugh, but if you work for corporate medicine, you can't do that, right? So there's that freedom in private practice. So I've been working really hard the last 4 years at the Family Doc Clinic in urgent care. We opened up 4 years ago. I have an amazing team that has allowed me to do what I do. I have an amazing wife who's supported me throughout. And because of them, we've grown. We've grown through 3 clinics now. We have 10 providers. We have, probably over 30 people on staff. And alhamdulillah, we're growing. And shout out to Shireen, if you see her. She's one of my partners in Hamtramck, and she's in the audience today. So my experiences, they haven't always been easy, but I've been blessed to have people around me to guide me and to always allow me to remember that at the end of the day, our time is limited, to enjoy it, give back, enjoy the pleasures of this life as well in the halal, and always remember to move forward and work hard.
Ahsan, Doc, thank you. Specific, you mentioned hard work, you mentioned honesty and community, and I think every panelist up here has embodied all of those words to the fullest of extent. So on behalf of the MIC, on behalf of the community, I really want to thank you guys for what you've done. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, now we'll move into asking each panelist their own questions, respectful to their individual fields, from the pool of questions that you have all uploaded. Sister Dunya, is it okay if we start with you? Okay. If you want, we could go the opposite way. okay. Yeah, yalla, 3 minutes works. Let's do it. Sounds good. Okay. Yes. Okay. So one of the questions we have is, do you ever feel in the legal world or criminal sorry, can we turn off that? Yeah. So do you ever feel in the legal world or criminal justice system, it may intentionally or unintentionally harm the less fortunate recipients of legal power? If so, how can we as Muslims prevent this in the criminal justice system?
100%. There are innate issues with the system itself. Like the system, they say the system is broken, the system is really broken. I think first, people that don't speak the language have the toughest time in the system. And a lot of times they don't have attorneys or advocates who also speak their same language, or they're going outside of the community for attorneys because that's what they've been told to do their whole life, like go outside the community, but then that attorney doesn't understand their language and they have a very, very tough time navigating the system and getting the facts right. So I think there are safeguards you could put in place in order to protect yourself against the innate issues that live within the system itself. And I think that's a big part of why we do what we do, and why I've been trying to build a team of attorneys who can specialize in every single area of law, because it's not just one area of law that has a defect within the system, or people that don't have the ability to pay for legal services. They can't, they don't know how to navigate it. They don't have any attorneys in their circles. They don't know who to go to. So trying to get the word out that we are here, we're here to serve. There's so many attorneys now in the community. It's amazing to see. So you definitely need an advocate on your side. And even with that, know that the system isn't always fair, but there was a case, if I can tell like a quick story, there was a case I had, and everyone told me I was going to lose this case. I was going to trial. My guy was seriously injured. He fell in the back of a semi-truck. He only spoke Arabic. Went to the hospital. The hospital didn't put, they called it a stroke because it was bleeding the brain from the trauma when he fell. And nobody said that he fell in the back of the truck. So if you don't fall in the back of the truck, then the insurance policy won't pay for it. So that was a whole issue of the case. So like the injuries were there, haram, he suffered so much, he couldn't go back to work, couldn't provide for his family, had 5 kids, and everyone told me I'm gonna lose this case because my client was like Arab that could not stop talking, and sometimes we don't make the best witnesses. So sometimes we don't. So we navigated that process, we prepped him, we went to trial. He did what I thought he was going to do. He did not make the best witness. But the jury still came back in my client's favor. They still saw the evidence based on what we were able to position and show them it. Moment in itself gave me like hope that if we go through the system and we do our part, it will work. So alhamdulillah, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But definitely get an advocate on your side, find some help, and there is a lot of help out there.
We have one more question for you, actually. Thank you so much. In your work as a lawyer, you may sometimes represent clients whose cases involve haram business. How do you approach those situations while staying true to your values as a Muslim?
I don't represent them.
Great.
I have a choice, and this is kind of going to what my Dr. Ali said, is I started my own business for the freedom to be able to practice law the way I needed to in order to stay morally sound to what I believed in. And I'm building a team that believes the same way, that has the same values, and it's allowed me the freedom to be able to practice in that way. I don't have to take every case. If a case comes in that I think is haram, I think the person is guilty, whatever the reason is, I don't feel good about that, I will not take that case. And a lot of times in my practice too, in the auto accident field, I remember when I first started, there's a lot of people in the field that I'm in because there's a lot of money in the field that I'm in. So with a field that allows for a lot of money comes a lot of people that are just trying to run towards the money, and they're not grounded in faith or in their moral compasses. So I remember for the first 3 years, I literally had to walk people out of my office. Like, I don't cross this line. I don't cross this line. I don't cross this line. It took about 3 years before they stopped knocking on my door about how to get clients, where to go, things like that. And now everyone knows, so nobody ever comes to me for it. But you have to kind of establish yourself and stay firm and know that the money will come with time and hard work, and you do not have to cross any lines to be able to get there. You really don't. You can do it without that.
A quick follow-up, real quick, and you don't even have to go into detail if you don't want to. Do you feel like because you set your intention and your intention is rooted in a true belief rather than chasing the money, that's what allowed you to grow in your business and at your firm?
I have no doubt in my mind that that's why. That is, it comes from Allah, right? So we do our part, we work hard, and if that is, it comes from that, that's amazing. And if not, it's going to be seen in the hereafter. And I've always held true to that. So I 100% believe that.
Hassan, thank you so much. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Haj Musa, we have a question for you, and it goes, what do you think of students that limit the careers they want to go into because of the money that comes from it not being enough in their eyes?
I think that is the question that faces every young adult. And so I guess I would tell you a few things. Number one, that is whatever's written for you will come. Whatever profession you get into, I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open those doors. But a couple of points I can make and expand upon, hopefully. One of the things, when I was younger, my father was an engineer, and I did not see my father. He worked long days, he worked the weekend. I didn't see him much. When I got to be, my formative years, and I got into college, my dad, I remember, he used to tell me, "Ya bayyi al-hayat mithl al-mizan." Life is like a scale. On one side is time, on the other side is money. You could have a lot of money, you won't have a lot of time. Or you could have a lot of time, you probably won't have a lot of money. And one of the reasons I went into education, and this is a positive thing, I wanted weekends off, I wanted holidays off, and I wanted my summers off. Not because I'm lazy. I think those who know me know that I am type A and I work really hard. But I think what my dad taught me at a young age, and he didn't say these words, but Covey, if you guys study Covey and the habits of effective leaders, one of the best habits begin with the end in mind. That's what my dad was telling me. Begin with the end in mind. And I will tell you, and I think those who know, I got my family out there, I wanted to raise a righteous, noble family. I wanted to see my kids. I wanted to be involved in their lives. I was all about, even at 19, 20 years old, I think those who know me, I got married at 23. I was 28, I had 3 kids, alhamdulillah. I wanted family. So I could tell you that, begin with the end in mind. And I think no matter what profession you go into, if you excel, if you work hard, you're going to climb and become the top at whatever it is that you do. But it just comes with hard work. And I will say, there is so much pressure in this country to make money. And we need money. We need money for our mosques. We need money in order to help give back, to allow clients to come in and get free treatment. All of these things would not be possible if we were not to garnish wealth as a community. And I'll tell you, there's also influence that comes with money. And we have community members who have influence. That's very beneficial. So I think we can't overlook the fact that money is a tool and money serves a purpose. But I think that can't be the only thing that you chase. I'd say begin with the end in mind. And I would just say this, and I think I've talked to so many of you privately. I know we probably all share this belief, right? There was a study done by Robert Leiter. He interviewed over 10,000 people over the age of 65. And he boiled it down. He said, you know, if you had to go back and live your life over again, what would you do differently? And to sum it up, everyone at the end of their life, they just want to know that their life mattered, that their life had purpose, and that they added value to this world. And so we're all going to die. Right? Like Covey, begin with the end in mind. Like begin with the very end in mind. We will all die. You won't take your money with you. You're not going to take the title with you. And even all your accomplishments. In 100 years, no one will know any of our names. Right? And I think if you're an old man, inshallah, we're all old men and women, and we're having that cup of coffee, Ali, that you owe me. Right? I want to look back at my life and say I did something good and that my life mattered. And so I say, like, when you go to pick your career, let that be your litmus test. Because whether you had the money or not, if you could put your head on the pillow, if you knew that you had a fulfilled life, that you touched the lives of others, I think in the end, you won at the game of life. No matter how many numbers you have in your bank account or not, right? Like, I'll tell you, like, I have students who had me for calc, who are doctors. Like, I'll see students, they'll come up to me and they'll hug me. They're like 35 years old. And they'll thank me, you know, and I'm like, man. And I had a couple of students who couldn't speak any English, who came from Lebanon. They had me for calc. And now they're, mashallah, very successful. So you look back at that and can't put a price tag on it. That was more than 3 minutes.
Ahsan Hajj, thank you. No worries. Actually, I just want to talk on a quick point. You mentioned begin with the end in mind. Some call it dua, some call it manifestation, but regardless of which school, you know, whatever you call it, they both say to believe that it's already there. So when you're manifesting or you're asking Allah for something, you have to believe that it's already there. So I wholeheartedly agree, and thank you so much. I have one more question for you, if you don't mind. Is that okay? Really, we'll limit this one, inshallah. It's a loaded question, so forgive me. But as a Muslim educator and leader working in a district that is predominantly white, Christian, and conservative, have you ever faced challenges or racism because of your identity, and how did you navigate those experiences while staying true to your values?
Oh. Ya Allah. You know, I think life is all full of challenges. I'll tell you, my journey with my current district was a roller coaster. I think when I first got hired, there was a tremendous amount of excitement. And then I do remember at the end of my second year, beginning of my third year, there was a presidential election. The climate got very charged in the country. And there was talk about lists and deporting and Muslim ban. And I remember the day after the election, a parent put on Facebook, "Fire the Muslim principal." And she encouraged everyone in the community to come out to a board meeting to let the school board know how they felt about me. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. I show up at this board meeting. There's nowhere to park. Channel 4 is there, Channel 7. And I'm like, Allah yustar, I don't know what the heck is going on. And I walk in, probably 500 people packed in a gym. They were all there to support me. Kids, parents, for 2 hours, went up to the microphone, talked about their interactions with me, you know, basically our moral compass, right? How we treat people, how we interact with people. That woman who started it, her and her 3 friends walked out, and they didn't dare make a public comment. But I will tell you, it didn't end there. I would tell you for about a year and a half, I was under constant scrutiny. I was under the microscope. I went through a myriad of challenges because they're not going to stop attacking you. But alhamdulillah, after a few more years, right, that storm passed. But I think they see your true character. They know where your heart is at. They know your commitment to the students and to the community. And ultimately, the truth did prevail. Alhamdulillah, I would tell you that my time in Grosse Pointe it's been the hardest challenge of my life, but it's also been the most fruitful. And I tell you that it reminds me of the surah, Inna ma'al usri yusra. You know, sometimes, and I had a good friend who might be listening. His name is Haj Hamza, but he would always remind me of that. It's not after the struggle comes ease. It's actually with the struggle comes the ease, right? And so you have to lean into that. You have to embrace it. And I'll tell you, you have to be ready. I remember we had a big drinking problem at my high school. I go to the first prom, kids are throwing up. Kids are passed out in the car. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. You know, with the school that I came from in Oakland County, we had a school resource officer. So I say, well, you know, don't we have police who come to the dances? They tell me no. Long story short, I put a plan in place, and I know this is going to sound crazy. I said, I'm going to breathalyze all the kids who come into our prom and our homecoming. You're going to randomly draw a stick. And if the stick is marked, you're going to get breathalyzed. I bet you in Dearborn they wouldn't let me do that. You know what the community did in Grosse Pointe? The overwhelming majority stood behind me. Because my why is I want kids to be safe and healthy. I want them to make responsible choices. And our attendance plummeted. And then some parents attacked me and they said, attendance is down 30, 40%. I said, I'd rather have a half-empty gym with students making safe, healthy, responsible choices than a gym that's packed. And God knows what's going to happen when they all leave and get in their cars. But they came after me and said, I'm imposing Sharia law. And I remember a group of parents came to me and she's like, well, you're Muslim and you don't drink. I said, that is true. I'm Muslim and I do not drink. And then she's like, and you're trying to impose Sharia law on our students. I said, no, I'm not. It's called Michigan law. Under 21, you can't drink, right? And so I think but you have to be aware. And I knew before I instituted this policy that I would get attacked. Do you have the courage to remain steadfast in your belief? Do you know your why? And for me, the why was I wanted to keep kids safe. And every Michigan public school, like we are a drug and alcohol-free campus. So if you know you have a problem and you're not willing to tackle it, that by default, you're condoning it. That was another long answer on it, sorry. But the answer to all is yes. You will be challenged for your faith. And it doesn't matter. I've worked in conservative communities and I've worked in very liberal communities. Believe me, it's the same. I've had communities that say, we welcome diversity and we're so glad to have you. And man, you get stabbed in the back just as hard. And I've had people and I've gone to other communities, I've worked in several, who've said, Musa, be careful when you come here. We're mildly racist. And they've opened up their arms, and it's been the best experience. SubhanAllah.
Actually, when you mentioned the story about the school board meeting, I know you mentioned with hardship comes ease. The verse that came to my mind was, they plan, but Allah plans too. And alhamdulillah, the way that turned out. Thank you for such a beautiful answer. Stay Rab ala bis. Inshallah, we'll get to you next. This is somewhat of a I know that last one was a loaded question. This is also a two-part loaded question. Since you're in legislation, it is going to be related to what's going on overseas. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So, how do you navigate working in a place where many individuals around you are supportive of our government's complicity in the genocide that has been taking place in Gaza? Secondly, we've protested, sent emails, boycotted, and 2 years later, not much has changed. So, what can we do to actually make an effective change in our government's complicity?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I want to address the first part is, how do you continue to advocate for what's happening in Palestine, the genocide happening in Palestine, given the pushback you might get from your colleagues? And I'll tell you, I serve in the Michigan legislature. It's a state body. We focus on Michigan issues. But I have colleagues of mine that take the time, they go on a trip every year to go to Israel. I have some that just went last week to meet with the Prime Minister over there. It is disheartening, I'll be honest. These are the people that I have to work with to help solve the pressing issues of public safety, of road funding, of school aid funding, right? These are the same people. And for me, I'll tell you, and I think the second part of the question is tied, right? So you have these conversations, you talk to people, you write these emails, but I'll tell you something. Public opinion has changed. Public opinion has changed. If we go back several years ago, the majority of people were supportive of the bombings and the massacre that we see. If we go today, 71% of Americans believe America needs to stop the genocide in Gaza. Think of that. And that doesn't happen by itself. That happens because people are tuning in. It happens because we refuse to stop talking about it. It happens because unfortunately, the genocide is televised. It's on our Twitter. It's on our Facebook. It's on our Instagram. We see what's happening. And you cannot deny it with your eyes. And so for me, I tackle it like I tackle most issues, and that is I continue to just have conversations. You can never stop talking about it. You can never be shy from your position. You cannot cower away. You got to do it, and I'm sure, Haj, you touched on this, always in a respectful way, always in a polite way. You can never give them an excuse to walk away from the conversation saying, oh, this person, you cannot talk to him. He's hot-headed. He has a temper. You have to always keep your cool, because I have been hit with the most bigoted comments you could imagine. Even to this day, some people confuse me. I think I'm better looking than him, but they confuse me with Abdullah. And, there's no laughs. It's brutal for me. But, I'll tell you, they still say that. And so for me, I think what I'll tell folks on the issue of the genocide in Gaza and of the issue in Palestine, and even Lebanon and Yemen and Syria where the bombings have been happening, you can never be disheartened. They want us to stop talking about it. They want us to give up. They want us to think you're not getting anywhere with this. Yet for the first time ever, you've had dozens of countries recognize a Palestinian state. You've had people leave the United Nations Assembly when Prime Minister Netanyahu, who is a war criminal, somebody who the UN considers to be a war criminal, went up to speak. That doesn't happen by itself. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. That happens because people keep talking about it. It happens because there's pressure that is building. And so whether it's with my colleagues or the work that people are doing when they're reaching out, the work is the same. You have to keep talking about it. You have to keep having the conversations. You have to open people's eyes. Because like I said, for many of them, I might be the first Arab American they ever meet. They might ask me, why does Palestine, the first question I get is, why does Palestine matter so much to the Arab community? Why doesn't Egypt just take everybody there? Why doesn't Jordan just take everybody there? It makes so much sense. And you sit with folks, and you just have to unpack years of misunderstanding, of propaganda, of just false narratives that they've been fed. And it's it's hard work, I'll tell you. The state of Michigan was facing a government shutdown if we didn't get a budget deal done by October 1. That was easier to do, because we did get a deal, than handling some of these conversations. But we'll keep having these conversations. We don't give up. They want us to give up. It's the easy thing to do, is to give up. But you just have to know how to become comfortable being uncomfortable in these conversations, and know that, look, the ultimate thing we have, I'll say this also, is we have the truth on our side. We have the truth on our side. And if that is what you have, you need nothing else. No matter how articulate, no matter how presentable, the truth is a liberating tool that we have distinctly. You can't buy it. You can't. We have it, and we keep speaking it to power every single day. I think that's how you continue to win, and that's how we are winning right now, when the majority of Americans are saying we need to stop sending weapons overseas, when they're saying we need to feed Gaza, when they say we need the people in Palestine deserve justice, they deserve their own state, they deserve dignity. I mean, these are unheard of things that we've never expected that the King of England, who signed the whose family signed the Balfour Declaration, are now the ones saying it's time for a Palestinian state. Who would have imagined that? And so these are the things I think that we have to keep looking at and saying we are making progress. We have to keep going.
Ahsan, thank you so much. And even in the last couple of weeks, we've seen so much change, so I very much agree. I'm going to ask one more quick question. It's not going to be as in-depth, but something that they really want to know, especially as a career as a politician, is what skills or experiences best prepared you for a career in politics that you wish you had focused on earlier?
Yeah, so I'll say this for the folks here. I'm 25 years old. I don't hide the fact that I don't know everything. I don't hide the fact that people on this stage I'm learning from as they're speaking. And I think as long as you have a growth mindset, and I do start, actually one thing I do is I do start with the end in mind. I start with that. It's good that you brought that up. But you keep learning and you seek out wisdom. There's times where I am stuck with moral questions where I will call Sayyid Kazwini. I will call leaders who I trust, who I know I can talk to. I will call mentors of mine. I will call people who have done it before, and I will have that growth mindset. It's not easy to think that when you're sitting at a table, one of the reasons I love this job, but why it's so difficult, you mentioned being a CPA, I vice chaired in the majority of the tax policy committee. Ask me how much I knew about what a standard deduction was. Zero. But I had to learn it. I had to learn what the tax code, I had to learn how property taxes work. Go from that to learning now how we pay for Medicaid in Michigan. These are two different issues, but I love that thrill of learning things and just being able to handle complex problems. But you do it with a growth mindset. And I guess that's the biggest thing I would encourage people to have is a growth mindset. Being willing to learn, seek out good advice, and finding the right people to tell you don't know. That's a good answer to the right people is I don't know, can you teach me? That's a good thing to say to the right people.
Can I ask you a question?
Did you use this is off. Did you use the QR code?
No, but do we have a school aid fund yet?
I can't talk about it.
We still don't have a school aid fund. We don't have a school budget yet.
You'll have it on October 1.
Allah يساعدنا.
Thank you so much for that amazing answer. Doc, we have a question for you. So the first one's actually not a question. It's more of a request, actually. Tell us about your 40-day initiative during Muharram and what inspired you to start it.
So, before I answer that, it's so important to have people in our community take different fields because it really does empower us to make not only change, but to serve our community members. Like Al-Abbas Farhat in the state, people don't imagine how important this is. When they were talking about cutting funding for Medicaid, cutting funding for virtual visits, that a lot of our patients use it, right? Because a lot of them don't have transportation. A lot of them have a hard time coming. It's a huge resource. And I called him. I'm like, Abbas, what's going on, man? Our patients are not going to be able to be seen. And he said, don't worry, we're fighting. We're working really hard. And honestly, that it's a huge blessing that a lot know about. And it's a huge blessing, and it's a need. We always need someone in politics, in the state, nationally, inshallah, to fight for us and fight for working families across this country. So thank you. So can you repeat your question?
So much as a question, it was actually a request to tell us about your 40-day initiative during Muharram and what inspired you to start it.
So, when I decided to become a physician, it was to serve, and it's really easy to give charity when you have money, right? But charity, you get good deeds for it. But when you give from your time, you're purifying your soul. You're reminding yourself why you did something. So service is the number one thing to do to prevent burnout. That's one of the reasons, to remind myself why I became a physician always. Number two, to honor Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Ahlul Bayt and Imam Hussein. Because Imam Hussein gave the ultimate sacrifice. So we can sacrifice as well. And let me tell you something, I wouldn't be able to make that sacrifice without my team. Because it is hard. It was very hard. And when I said for Muharram, and then I said 40 days, and then I said, shoot, is it 30 days or 40 days? And then we had to do it for an extra 10 days. And I made the same mistake last year. It was hard because we were seeing an extra about 28 patient visits a day in a clinic. So we saw 1,100, we had 1,100 visits in those 40 days. And it's kind of a purification for us as a team. It's kind of a purification for me, where at the end of it, you struggle so hard, but with that struggle, with that struggle, you teach the upcoming doctors, this is what it's meant to be. So it's to serve, but also to teach as well, and to sacrifice. And people think like, you know, when you give, you're gonna lose. I always tell like my team and everybody around me, you think you're gonna be more generous than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Like you think, do I astaghfirullah think I'm gonna be able to give more what I'm giving? I'm getting much more in return. The days that we do that initiative, and this is for all the businesses out there and all their clinics, the days we do that and those initiatives, we see more patients that their insurances are paying than the days that we don't. Like there is a blessing, there is a rizq that comes with it. I have a team member. I get goosebumps thinking about this. I have a team member that's not a Muslim. In Muharram, 2 weeks into it, I saw my team was getting tired. It's hard. You're seeing an extra provider's worth of patients a day, and it's nonstop. They're skipping they're skipping their breaks. They're not going to the bathroom. These patients coming in don't have insurance, so they have a lot of issues. And I said, you know what? I want to give them a bonus. So I gave every single team member a really nice bonus, and it was, you know, it was a good amount of money. And there was one person on my team who is older. She's not a Muslim. She's a working mom. She works over 70 hours a week, 3 jobs. She's working nonstop. She refused to take the money. She looked at me, she says, I am doing this for God, I am doing this for Allah. I want my reward from Him like you want your reward. I gave my wife the money. I told her, give her the money. She refused it. SubhanAllah, she has been living in I don't want to discuss her personal situation, but she's never owned a home. I get a phone call that day, she refused the money from a guy. I have a house. Does that person that you asked me about last year still want a house? It's for a steal. She got a house that's worth $230,000 for $150,000. She would have never been able to afford that house. The day she said, I want my reward from Allah. So it's a lesson. Allah was reminding me, reminding her and everybody else, and I made sure to tell all of them, and I made sure to tell her that when you give, you will get. So inshallah, when everybody gets in those positions, give. Because you're not taking, like Hajj said, you're not taking anything with you. Like how much do we really need? Right? You think the clothes are gonna make you happy? It's those memories you make. It's doing things because you're passionate about it that makes you happy. It's having that time and that freedom that makes you happy. So, inshallah, like we all work together and we continue to give back together. And I remind myself, like I don't want you guys to think I'm better or I'm a good person. This is a wajib. God's gonna ask you on the day of judgment, what did you do with the amana I gave you? What did you do with that responsibility I gave you? And I just hope I don't fall short.
Please, let's give him a lot salawat after that beautiful story. Dr. Masala, thank you so much. I have one more question for you, and then we'll move on to Brother Sam. In medicine, you sometimes face situations that can clash with faith values, like end-of-life care, gender-affirming care, or lifestyle choices. How do you handle those tough moments as a Muslim doctor?
At the end of the day, no matter what your profession is, you respect individuals, you respect people. We can have our differences, we can be on a different level of understanding and closeness to Allah, and you always respect everybody. And I have my own private practice, right? So I can make decisions on what I want to do or how I want to practice. I always respect people. I say, I'm sorry, I can't, this is against my religion, this is against my belief. If you want resources, you can go online and find that somewhere else. And that's the blessing that I have as a private practice. And I haven't had any issues. But there's also education, right? So even so, if it's a Muslim patient, I educate. Like, for example, if I need to look in your ear as a Muslim woman, you don't need to take off your whole hijab, right? So I say, it's okay. No, it's okay. You don't need to take off your scarf. Only take off this ear, right? We always in our clinic have a female provider. So I always say, hey, we have a female provider. Would you like to see that female provider for women issues? About educating and also respecting people's beliefs.
Okay, Sam, so we have a couple questions for you. One of them has been the talk of the town in the past, so my apologies, but here's the question. Are you ready? You're all ready. Before the presidential election, Donald Trump visited Dearborn and went to the Great Commoner, which you were part owner of at the time. This caused a huge controversy in the community due to his stance with Israel. What was the decision-making behind opening your doors to him?
It wasn't the easiest decision, but I think a lot of times people jump to conclusions. I think a lot of times people forget the intent around decisions. And I've grown up, my father raised me to always open doors, always try to be diplomatic, always allow for conversations to happen. And I know at the time it was extremely controversial, and the sole decision didn't come down just on myself, but I also didn't stop it from happening. So I do take, I'll take the burden, I'll take the responsibility. But at the end of the day, it came down to the decision of, do we open our doors and allow for the conversation? Do we allow for that diplomacy? Do we invite somebody, or not necessarily invite, but allow them into our doors with the intent of hopefully changing the narrative? And this was one of those decisions where, when President-elect Trump was campaigning, they reached out to the community looking for a place of business. And we were one of maybe 2, potentially 3 locations that were security cleared, et cetera, and then also background checks on myself, and because there was Secret Service and all kinds of clearances that had to pass before the event actually took place. But to answer the root of the question, it's like, why, or how could you, or how dare you allow this person at the time of a genocide? And you could reverse it, and you can start to attack other community members and say, but you were parading around Camilla and President Biden at the time. And there was so much support on the Democratic side, for the Democrats, and not enough people speaking out against it either. But where it came down to for me was, we knew the choice that we had with Biden. And when Trump came, we knew that there is a likelihood that he would go back to his old ways, but there's also a potential for change. The one demand that I made, and I impressed, that if he's to come, there has to be talks of ending the wars. What's the likelihood that a local business owner or somebody from our community is going to get the, maybe not at the time the most powerful man in the world, but now the most powerful man in the world, literally, to have him actually say the words, to have him take a plaque that has a quote for peace from President Ronald Reagan? It wasn't a plaque awarding him for his good deeds. It was a plaque so that way he would go back to the Oval Office, hopefully, and remind himself to drive for peace, to drive for ending wars, And what he claims to do is, put America first. And if you're going to put America first, the reality behind putting America first is truly to end the wars overseas. And I knew it was going to be controversial. I didn't know it was going to turn out the way that it did, or that people were going to misconstrue my intentions. I think now we're on day 700 or so of the genocide, and there has not been a single day that I haven't posted in solidarity with Gaza, with Palestine, and even with the Lebanese people that have been bombarded on a daily basis. And leading to President Trump, which I'm shocked that I actually passed any security clearances, because if you see my posts, I would be on the first list for deportation. I couldn't believe it, but I haven't stopped. And more so, I felt like, the community would have at least respected or backed the decision in hopes that the intent was good. And the reason is because I feel like I've, over the last, 13 years that I've been doing business in the community, that I've stepped up to the plate. Initially, I think we were the very first business in the entire community to post publicly in solidarity with Gaza. We put out a public statement, and for myself, with aspirations to take Brome to the national level and to franchise nationally, that was an enormous risk for me to do, for me to take. But on top of that, I doubled down days after that, and I donated 100% of profits from all restaurants to Gaza. And we donated, and it's not necessary to mention the amount, but it wasn't a small number, and I did it happily, and I did it proudly, and I was attacked. You have no idea the DMs that I was receiving. I was attacked on a daily basis. People were tearing down my character, everything that I have done in my entire career. I don't even have a speeding ticket. There's not one blemish on my record. But I was torn down, and all my community service was taken away from me, all for one single decision, although the intent was the purest of intents. I'm not out here taking the man out to dinner. He simply came into the restaurant in hopes that we would show him what our community is about. I don't think he's ever been around Lebanese Americans, Palestinian Americans. I don't think he knows what we're like. And so opening those doors, having those conversations, especially with his son-in-law being, Lebanese, a Lebanese individual, I felt like there was a shred of hope. So it was a scary time for me, but alhamdulillah, we made it through, and I know there are people that still don't forgive. Hopefully they'll forget eventually. I still get the comments. Recently there's somebody that saw my picture and started to comment on it about, am I inviting him to the Great Commenter? Well, at the time, I was actually in the process of selling the Great Commenter, which I did. So no, I'm not inviting him to the Great Commenter, nor would he ever get another invitation unless he stops all wars. But that is a long shot. I think there's so many factors that come to play, but the point, and the intent of the decision was one of purity, and one that I still stand by proudly. I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't the best decision, but I stand behind my decision because I did it with pure intent. So I don't know that you can take that away from me, nor would I let anybody take it away from me. But it's something that we learned from, and I learned quite a bit from the experience, and I continue to learn. But alhamdulillah for everything.
Alhamdulillah, I actually want to make a couple of points. It reminds me also of, Imam Hassan alayhi salam before every battle, or Imam Ali before every battle, they would have dialogue, and they would try to come to a peaceful agreement before anything would happen. So I think it's within our values to try to have that dialogue and never stray away from it. Secondly, a lot of people will watch like Al Jazeera or CNN to get their news. I promise you, like I follow Sam. I know Sam very well. He posts consistently as a voice for the Palestinian people, for the Lebanese people, and for oppression all around the world. So his intentions are pure, and I thank him for. Moving to a less loaded question, something that even I want to know actually is entrepreneurs have a desire for success, growth, and expansion. Sometimes this can cause them to be stuck in this dunya and forget about their family and faith. How have you found your balance between your path as an entrepreneur and your Islamic identity?
So initially, I opened my first business, I think when I was 22 or 23 years old. I took my first loan from my father, which I was fortunate enough to be able to start out. The pursuit for success was always there, and I tried so hard, and I wanted to make it work, and I tried and tried and tried. But I feel like my why was off. Why I was doing it was because I wanted to be successful, I wanted to make money. And then as I got older, as I matured, and after I moved back to the community, I remembered what my why is. I remembered that, doing business is one, obviously, of course, is always to give back, like, Dr. Ali does and others here. But at the same time, remembering that while opening businesses, being content, maybe it wasn't meant for me. Because I opened and I failed, and I opened and I failed, and I would pivot and I failed, and I kept trying over and over, and I just couldn't figure out what was I doing wrong. I was an MBA at the time, and I was in the process of becoming a CPA, and finally it clicked, and I just said, Alhamdulillah. If it's not meant to be, it's just simply not meant to be. And that's why my parents pushed me for education. So I'm just going to pivot and fall back on my education, and I'll just go into accounting and hope for the best there. And that's when I feel like God opened it up for me with Azatnin. I felt more secure in what I was doing, and in remembering what the true meaning of what Alhamdulillah is, and being content, and understanding that when you're pursuing something for the wrong reasons, maybe Allah won't give it to you, and the reason for that is because you might follow the wrong path at that point. A lot of times people make a lot of money very quickly, and I've seen it amongst people I've grown up with, where they came upon a lot of money very quickly, and I'll tell you, they're not on the same path that they were when I once knew them. And I thank God, because when I moved back to the community and I opened up my business, and alhamdulillah, I did see that first glimpse of hope, that first glimpse of success. It actually drew me closer to my faith. I was more embedded in my faith. I felt stronger in what I was doing. And that's what kind of brought me to the community. And then I was able to give back to the community. And it just came full circle. Everything came full circle. Full circle, and I felt better about what I was doing. A lot of times people think, making money is everything, but the reality of it is having your family, having your friends, being blessed with a beautiful wife and kids. Those are the true blessings. And that's where, if Allah is going to give you that riz'ah, that's where you're going to feel it. That is the riz'ah. And alhamdulillah, whatever comes with it, I'm thankful for that as well. But I've seen enough ups and downs in my life, and that's the one thing about our community, is a lot of times you only see the ups of people, but you don't see what happens behind closed doors. You don't see the struggles, you don't see the failures, but they are there. They're absolutely there. But that's what makes an entrepreneur specifically stronger and more focused, is when you see those failures, when you experience them. You'll never be successful until you fail. I've always lived by that. You can't be successful until you fail. Because if you hit that first roadblock, you're going to fall straight on your face. So that allows you to get stronger. And alhamdulillah for that. Alhamdulillah for all of my experiences, whether controversial or not. I wish you would have led with this question instead of the other one. But I'll take them, so alhamdulillah.
Very much appreciate your detailed answers. I'm sorry, inshallah, next time I'll have you, I'll make sure to run by the order with you. Seriously, on behalf of the entire MIC and everybody here, I want to thank all of our panelists for their thorough responses, their dedication to serving our community, and for their commitment to the youth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, and I hope you have all enjoyed the insights as much as I have. We are finished up with all the questions, but we do have refreshments outside. I would like to invite everybody to join us, panelists as well. If you have to go, we completely understand. If not, please join us, inshallah. We can communicate, we'll mingle in a more intimate setting. So let's end it with a loud salawat, and thank you again. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.